1, 2, 3, 4.
You're listening to the Revive Couple Podcast. We're Michael and Laura, and together we'll explore everything relationships, personal responsibility, feminine and masculine dynamics, communication, and just some all-around real and raw conversations.
Drawing from our 18 years together, with a bit of sarcasm, humor, tears, a few f***s, and lots of love, we deep dive into the male and female perspectives on relationships and navigating the highs and lows of life together. Sit back, grab your love mug, and let's get into today's conversation. All right, babe, what are we talking about?
Good one. We're going to be talking about men being on their purpose and how that feels. And we can talk about it from my perspective and what that looks like in relationship, what that looks like in my life, what that looks like being a father, and like I say, most importantly, just how I feel and what's kind of inner workings of this big, beautiful head of mine.
Speaking of big, beautiful head.
Exactly. Well, no one really said...
It's looking less big today because you got a haircut, so
yeah,
that's good.
No one said anything, thank God. It was...
What do you mean no one said anything?
Well, no one made fun of the last videos that were popping up, and which is good. But yeah, it was pretty poofy on a mission, but it was... now I have some guidance in that mission, so it'll look a little better, and yeah.
For those of you who didn't hear the last episode, Mike is growing his hair out. It's something you've always talked about, which actually is kind of neat. I was telling someone today that it's something you've always talked about, but never did. And so now you're doing it.
Yes.
Girl. Good job.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. So we got through, I'm in my army phase now. We went through that really awkward, poofy chia pet phase. Now I'm in my
chia pet.
Yeah,
that is totally him.
Absolutely. Now I'm in my sergeant phase. So watch out.
But we've never. Oh yeah, I was like, we've never gotten past the sergeant phase. But yeah, you have, because you did that whole like London.
Did the London thing, and then I was watching. I got really reminiscing a couple months ago, and I was like looking past like really old videos, and when we were in Portugal on our way back from
it's
Europe.
A good flow then.
Yeah, it was pretty sick flow, and then lopped it off. But yeah, anyway, it's not a hair show today.
This episode is sponsored by
look, Paul Mitchell. He's got nice hair. Started in his car. He was really driven. He was powerful. He was like a guy just doing his thing.
Is that actually his story?
Yeah, and then he was selling shampoo, slinging. I was gonna say slinging. Slinging shampoo out of his car, which is a deadly story. But then in hindsight, you're like, who is buying shampoo off a guy in his car? Anyway,
what was that in the 80s?
I don't even know. Probably, 70s? I guess. But he had impeccable. Look at the mane on that guy. I'll buy whatever he's selling. Anyway, okay, but really.
Well, wait. Never mind that. Not never mind you, but I totally just interrupted you. That was pretty masculine of me. Now I've ruined it. I just wanted to say that, like, when I was like, oh, what was that back in the 80s? And I was like, never mind that. Frick, I watched a video from like 2002 or something, and I thought that was like the 80s, and that was what, 20 some years ago?
That was 20 years ago, yeah.
Oh, yes. I should just stop talking. I was just trying to do quick math in my head about when this thing happened. But yeah, it was 20 years ago. And that felt like that was just yesterday, but that was 20 years ago. So when I'm like, oh, what was that, like the 70s or the 80s? That was like a million years ago. But anyways.
Yeah, if you're born in the 70s, we don't take that as anything.
I was born in the 80s.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're just well experienced.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's well, if you can't even tell by the way we're talking now, right? Like just being me feeling the way I feel now, it puts me in a whole different headspace, right? And this isn't like a new thing. This has been going on for a little while now, or quite a while. But I just really came to a realization today, having some time driving, and I was just thinking about it, and I was like, holy shit, like I feel really good right now. And then I'm trying to like go back on things that have gotten me to where I am and why I feel the way I feel, and it's really starting to add up and feels great. And then obviously you're a big part of that too, and your laughs and stuff, that helps. That makes everything even that much better.
I was just gonna say, you're trying to have a serious conversation. I was like, don't you have a sound effect for like, I just had this realization today. Dun, dun, dun.
Probably do.
I made one in my head. That's why I was just laughing.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I'm overly exhausted today. So I'm feeling extra laughy,
Yeah.
if that's a word.
That's
But
all right.
anyways,
There's definitely worse. There's definitely worse ways to deal with exhaustion. So deal with that. But no, like I say, it's really important for everybody to go back and reflect on things. And like, if you're feeling shitty, like reflect on why you're feeling shitty. There's reasons that got you there. It's not just like magically I'm here. So there's reasons and choices that got you to that position. Like for myself, I know it was whenever I was feeling that way, it's definitely food was making me feel that way. It was the decisions I was making of not working out or not training my body or moving my body. It was the way I was talking to my kids and the way I was talking to you or treating you or not treating you kind of thing. Right. And so many things, and the way I was handling work or my career and the ways I was letting things in that shouldn't have been coming in, and everything, right? And everything I was consuming, watching videos, watching TV, whatever it was. So that really contributes to the shittiness, and it also contributes to the good. So you got to really watch and pick what you let in. And we have that choice. It's we are the gatekeepers to our mind, right? And we really do have the choice of what we let in. It's just typically easier to let shit in than to really take time and be mindful and be meaningful of what we do let in. So it's quite the switch that you have to hit, and it doesn't happen overnight. But as you keep letting all the good in, it's not perfect by any means, but you'll really start to see the benefits in your life, and you'll really start to see the upswing in things.
yeah, because if you're not mindful, then everything's just running in that unconscious pattern or unconscious programming is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Cue the exhaustion.
No, absolutely it is, right? So I guess going to that, I don't want to talk too much in the past or really dive into the negative. Everyone knows the stories. Everyone knows about like depression, how easy that can take over most men. Definitely took over me, and just feeling shitty, right? Feeling shitty from work, feeling really overwhelmed from work, and it's not even the work itself. That's what really upset me, or like kind of really frustrated me. That's probably the better word. Really frustrated with everything. And most men I talk to, that's the same thing. It's like, it's not the actual work. Like the work isn't anything crazy, wild, where people have it a lot worse in a lot worse areas and people are in crazier situations and stuff. So it's not like the actual work. It's just the things, it's the emotions that work hits, and like the overwhelm that it hits, the pressure that we feel, or like made up pressure, especially pressure that I put on myself, which really wasn't there from the outside world, but it was all things I put on myself. And these deadlines that we make that were created by someone just a step above us so they can look better to the person a step above them, that really in the grand scheme of things don't really mean a whole lot of anything. So there's just so many of these factors with just work as an example that don't mean anything, but most men wear that so heavy. And then we bring that home and bring that into the family. Prime example is like supper time for us, right? Like when I was into that, or in that state of, sitting there with my family and like eating with my family, and that should be a fucking sacred time. It's like staring off into the corner, trying to solve the world's problems or my career problems or work issues, which aren't going to get solved at the dinner table. Like no one's going to be answering their phone. No one's answering emails, but I'm sitting there trying to solve these things where I should be spending time with my family and enjoying that time, and enjoying the time and enjoying the food and like the roof and the warm that working that job created, right? Instead of trying to just always like the next thing. And it was just exhausting. Talk about exhaustion, right? Like my head was just fried. So like work all day, and then you come home and you're still just running that tape through your head. And then there's a lot of times I wasn't sleeping the greatest because of that, because it was just kept replaying. And then you wake up again and you're just reliving that almost hell, like just every day, right? Of that. It was pretty bad. But then when you can step away and look at it, like, fuck, like, why did I stress about all that? It really was like, wasn't saving babies. It wasn't like, I wasn't doing anything crazy like that. Right. So yeah, work wise, that was happening. And then really that reflected on movement. So I wasn't moving a whole lot. And I know myself, I really thrive on that. Like I need to be moving, whether it's moving like hit workouts to really push myself and be sweating, or if it's moving heavy things, that feels really good. So it's vice versa between the two. And it just gets that energy or whatever that is, that energy flow out. And I know if I don't do that, then again, it just, I stew in the negative shit, or just that energy's balled up. And also and then eating, right? That reflects on that, where it's like so easy to crush a bag of chips and a bag of pepperoni. And that feels good, right? Or that's comfort, but then obviously makes me feel like shit after the fact. And then don't want to work out, and then it affects sleep, and it just affects everything, and just a vicious cycle. So, which again, then in turn, I don't feel good about myself, and I'm not bringing a good self to a relationship. And I say it all the time when I'm like guesting on podcasts and stuff. It's like, she looks at you like look at you on the couch, and it's like, would you fuck you sitting like the way you're sitting on the couch, like eating, just sweating from eating pepperoni? Like, what's going on right now? It's like, come here, baby, come give me. It's like, no, that ain't happening. Like, what are you doing? So then you feel bad about that, and just like this vicious cycle of negativity and shit that just really does not serve men at all.
Well, and I would add to that then. So when that's happening from a female perspective, it's like you're not leading yourself, right? You're not leading your home, which when I say leading your home doesn't mean that like the female or the feminine or the woman has zero, say in a home, but it's like an energy, right? That provider, protector kind of energy that the masculine, when he's in his power, brings to the space, right? And so when you're in that, this isn't to like kick you while you're down, right? But when you're in that, there is not that sense of safety and protection. And so the feminine, the woman, feels like she needs to step that up, right? And so from a feminine and masculine perspective, you kind of then begin to switch dynamics, or you have, you kind of switch dynamics. And I mean, she's stepping up to be more in the masculine and lead the household and all of that kind of stuff, which is not where she wants to be, right? And she wants to soften and open her heart. But if there's not this strong presence there to hold that for her, then there's resentment that builds, right? And then I work with couples, women who like, they don't feel, intimately connected to their partner. And it's like you said, of course, right? But as time goes on, even if you did begin to shift this stuff, she's starting to hold on to that resentment, and it's piling up over the years, right? So just coming out of like this state and choosing to lead yourself and to lead your home is definitely a huge step in changing things in your romantic relationship. But it also doesn't always happen just overnight, because now she's holding on to some junk, right? That she has to work through. So I think like you both have to, right? But sorry, that was like a long-winded, that's just me, that's how I do things, version of the female perspective of that, right? It is not attractive. We have to step up. We have to lead. And that is not the place we truly want to be in as feminine women. We want to soften. We want to sink into your arms and have you protect us. And it is attractive when we see you taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that goes into how you're saying it takes time. It really does take time. And for most guys, work out hard for a week. I use workout a lot, or I use working out a lot because it's very tangible. It's like easy to like use those as examples, because it's very easy to see like energy in, and you can see what comes out kind of thing. But if people do that for a week and then you look in the mirror and you're like flexing, you're like, fuck yeah, I got some big muscles now. Or like run for a week, you're like, yeah, I can kind of see a six pack. You're like, it's going to take a little longer than that. But same goes into, I'm doing all these things now. It's like, hey baby, I'm doing all these things. Like, you should be attracted to me now. Right. And like you said, it takes time. There's a lot of resentment built up. There's a lot of stories that were built up in that. And it's just like, you have to peel back those layers of onions, and that onion, and you got to peel that back. And the man, you have to really stay in that space that you're taking care of yourself, and prove to her that you're doing that over time. Like it's going to take time to prove that. And you have to stay in that space.
Yeah, building trust.
Because the more you do that and then you don't get what you want, and then you just stop again, that just adds another layer to that story of like, she has a hard time trusting you. Like, hey babe, I'm working out. I'm working hard. I'm happy. I'm doing these things. Like, yeah, you are today, but what's happening tomorrow, right? Or the next day. So you really have to gain that trust and like prove that this is going to be long-term sustainable things. So it's definitely a work in progress, and every day is, you have to make that choice of like, okay, today I'm doing this. Today I'm going to be, you can't just say happy, because happy comes and goes, and that's different, but I'm going to be positive. I'm going to not dwell on the negative. So there's so many choices that person has to make themselves to really step up into that. So that's just one aspect of it, was career. And then purpose, right? Like, so career and purpose they go together quite well for most people anyway. And myself I've had such I'm able to look back on it. It's been like amazing career, right? Or like amazing work life, to be honest. I've been very fortunate, starting all the way back as like a kid growing up on the farm. It was very instilled in me, like, and I wasn't the greatest kid either. Like, my dad had to like get me to like move my ass most days and like get stuff done, but it showed me, I had a great example of him moving his ass all the time without anyone pushing him, because he was the guy, right? If he didn't work, then the farm fell apart and everything else, right? So he taught me how to work, and I had a very good example of that. So then when I moved out into like more of the regular workforce, I guess we'll call it, moving into construction, because it was just a natural progression. I mean, yeah, like I got it, like had acceptance from like Yale, Harvard said no, but there was a couple other schools. I didn't have the funds and stuff. It was, so I was like, I better not do that. I'll go do something else.
I just want to be a struggling carpenter.
Yeah. So I took the summer off to make a few bucks to maybe pay for something, and then just ended up falling into the construction world.
Heavy on the sarcasm here.
But then with that, like it really, I excelled so fast in construction, because like, oh wow, you can work, and like construction marries itself well to that like small farm life, right? Mm-hmm. Of just like, work, get it done, whatever it takes, just do it, right? So I was able to excel quite fast in that, do really amazing projects, and I got very fortunate with not having to do like too many just normal everyday run-of-the-mill stuff. I got to do really interesting projects and very high profile. Almost everything I did was quite a high profile job, right? I was very fortunate in that aspect. So I got to meet a lot of people. I got to interact with people, and I got to see what construction did, not just building a building, but I got to see how it affected a lot of people, affected groups, like different work groups that moved into new places, or people it affected, like that Ronald McDonald House, like the families it affected. I got to see a lot of that. So it really really drove it home of like, this is more than construction. But at the same time I say that, I still fell into the pattern of like, I'm just a construction worker. It was a great, like, that married very, very well to like my drinking, because I was like playing into every stereotype possible, right? Of work hard, drink hard, work hard, drink hard. Like, that was just the cycle I was in. But I got to do that. And then obviously when I moved to Europe, got to do sales, which I kind of always wanted. Like, I always wanted to do that too. So it was a great example, like, got to do that. So it wasn't like I was ever missing out on anything. I got to do it. Moving back to Canada, do sales, got to do that. And like, I'll never wonder what that was like. So it was very interesting to do that. And it wasn't terrible, right? Like, I always say I failed, but I didn't really fail. It was very tough. And it was tough with like new kid and just supporting and new city. And it was just, there was a lot of forces against it. But at the same time, it showed me a lot of things, learned a lot of lessons. Especially now looking back on it, I can really take that in and appreciate that time. But then coming back and then getting to do project management on the office side was another blessing in disguise, right? Like, that's where I talked about all that stress, all that pressure, all that like disconnect from my family because of that job. But at the same time, now looking back, it's like that taught me so much. And I got to learn by like trial by fire. I didn't go to school for it, and I use that as an excuse a lot, because it was like, well, all these guys have university degrees and all these other things. And like I said before, I just couldn't afford it at the time to go to university, so I never did. Again, joking, but
my eyes are like glazed over. You know what I'm thinking right now? My 4-H motto, learn to do by doing.
Exactly.
That's what was playing through my head as you were talking about that. So I missed your joke there. Sorry.
No, that's awesome. But yeah, I kept going back to that. I was like, well, I'm not educated. So I was using that as an excuse to like not excel in that job. Where looking back now, I was like, I had every opportunity to excel. No one was ever like forcing me down. Upper management was like very extremely helpful. They wanted me to succeed. I did succeed. It was in my own head that I did extremely well in that job. It was just, I built things up so bad in my own head that I felt like I was failing and letting people down.
You were really hard on yourself.
Yeah, it was ridiculous, right? So again, now looking back on it, I'm so grateful for that experience, because now that really goes into what I'm doing, which I'm really following my passion and really following like my purpose. I feel that's why I did all of that stuff I just talked about. It all built up and like accumulated all those skills, all those decisions I made in the past, everything that I did really now lends itself perfectly to what I'm doing of, working with Indigenous communities, which is really close to my heart, working on getting these Indigenous communities the capacity to be self-sufficient and be sovereign, right? And getting more people and getting more young guys and getting more young kids, like females as well, interested in trades, interested in apprenticeships, working to be able to build things for themselves and build things in their own community, and searching and trying to find like people in those communities, trying to find that next engineer, trying to find that next project manager, and be able to mentor them and really speak to everybody at that level of like, I'm not like, I am you. Like I've been there. I've done all those things. Like, oh, I drink too much. I can't do this. I was like, well, I've been there too. Like, you could come to an AA meeting with me. I'll tell you all about it. Or like reading. It's like, I don't read good. And it's like, yeah, me neither. I had to use that today. So I was like, maybe they don't read well. You mean read good? And they're like, no, I'm read well. It's like, yeah, I know. But then I talked to them a lot about that and the struggles I've had with school, right? And not just school, just like reading, writing in general. I'm like, yeah, you can use that as a crutch and you can use it as an excuse, and you could just sit on your couch and do nothing with that. Or you can figure out ways to power through that and build a team around you to have that. Doesn't have to be your sole thing, right? Like, find someone that you can pair up with, that your skill set helps them and their skill set helps you. And then it makes a great team and you just get higher up. So talking to people about that. And then, like I said, with all that past experience now, I get to really help educate people within most of these communities, because they don't build things typically like that. Usually it's like quite cut and dry the way they do things. They don't know the whole, like, all the back processes, all of the way the contracts work, the way they're structured, the way pay works, like all of that. And it's very confusing for people that haven't been in that world. And it's a very frustrating world too, because you don't understand. You're like, well, I did the work, I just want to get paid. But it's like, you have to jump through so many hoops to make sure that there's all these fail safes in place, right? So that's very frustrating. So to be able to talk to people through that, and then being able to talk through ideas, but kind of play the devil's advocate a little bit on seeing things that failed and why they failed and how we can plug holes and fix those holes, not shitting on anyone's idea, but we can make it better and like work with it. And I have actual real life experience on why that didn't work this way, but we can fix it and we know how to build it better and do things better. Right. So, like I say, extremely, extremely passionate about that. And again, getting to work with people, getting to work with young people, getting them more involved. And it's just really exciting to see people want to change and giving them the tools to change. Again, I can't put it into words a whole lot. I just get really excited talking about it because it's everything I always wanted to do when I was like walking around these big sites or like sitting in front of blueprints for hours, like figuring stuff out. I'm like, God, like I want to do more. Like I want to do so much more. And it falls into that whole thing of every time you talk to someone, like, what do you want to do in life? It's like, I want to help people.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
I just want to help people. It's like, okay, great. Like, how do you want to help them? I don't know. Like, I'm not a doctor. That's when most people think I help people, or like, I'm not a healer. I can't, that's how I want to help. But it's like, no, everyone has their way of helping people. And I finally found, I've really found an avenue that I can really help people and like be extremely confident in helping people in that way, and not feeling like there's no imposter syndrome, there's no anything. I'm like, no, I know this shit, and I've done it, I lived it, I've been very successful at it, I've seen it, like things that work and like it goes awesome, and I've seen things that fail and go horrible, and everywhere in between. And it's so awesome to get to learn from those experiences, and honestly to be smart enough to learn from those experiences, because most people generally just dwell on that and let that whatever just eat away at a person. But it's like, no, fuck that. Yeah, we failed. Yeah, I screwed this up. Yeah, whatever. It's like, no, next time it's going to be that much better, right? And if I'm not doing it, I can help you make it that much better. I can help the next guy make it that much better. And then they can get the glory for that. Like, I want zero part of that. And I think that's a really big one too, is there's no part of me that wants like all the like recognition at all for any of it, right? Like I was so used to that growing up, all through work, like through that young career, of always being that person of like the young guy that can do these big jobs and run these big jobs and get all this stuff done. And it was always praise, and I was always so used to this praise all the time. But it never felt good. I could never accept the praise. And whatever that is, like, I guess I'm still working through that on like accepting that praise. But there's like zero part of me that even cares about that anymore. It's like, no, I didn't do it. Like, this guy did it. This person did it. Like, passing all that on to other people now and building them up. It's just so amazing to see. And again, it really gets me fired up to like work every day and like get to do these things and to talk to people and talk about ideas and how we can make things better. So it's a pretty interesting, everything's very interesting about it. And it's just like, this is just a tip of it. Like, it's just starting, right? So the world's really my oyster at this point with it all. So it's again, it's very exciting times for me. And in that aspect, like, just that's the only, like, in that avenue, it's really exciting for me on top of everything else, right? Like being a new dad. So that's another one, right? Like, it's super fucking exciting to be in a really good headspace and seeing my like 2-month-old baby like sit there and smile and laugh and giggle. And it's so filling. Like, that's what fills my tank, and then gives enough energy to do everything else, right? So it's awesome to be in that. And then obviously with Lennox, like 5.5-year-old, and getting to play and like listening to him like about his stories and like his building and everything he wants to build all the time and like make things and invent things. And it's so cool to like listen to that and like the creativity, but to be in the, again, in the headspace to like take that in and listen and like help him not run his little projects, but like help him just like, what else are we going to do? How else are we going to do it? What if we did this with that? Like, yeah, then run with those ideas instead of like in the past. If I was where I was, call it 3 years ago, I would be like either not listening to those ideas and he'd just be talking to like just talking, or I would snap at him and shut those down. And then now, like, yeah, that happens once, that happens twice, so be it. And then all of a sudden you do that too much and like that kid just shuts down and like those ideas die, right? And that creativity dies inside him a little bit. And he's like, well, if I am creative, if I'm overly happy or if I'm overly excited about something, then my dad's going to yell at me, and so I just won't say anything, and it just doesn't go anywhere, right? It just doesn't. So I'm very mindful of that and let him like do all of that, because I don't want to be the guy that crushes his dreams. Like, I got to be the guy that builds them up and like support those. So it's pretty special to see and to be smart enough or mindful enough or just to recognize like, okay, I can really incubate this, or I can really like support him in this, or I could be the fucking one that like crushes that too. And I have to be very, very, very mindful to not do that and to really like support him and let him do all those things, right? So it's yeah, it's pretty special to see that.
I like how you just said that, because it's like you don't, I think, realize as the father how powerful you are, right? And that goes in either direction, like you just said, to either like stifle all that stuff or to empower all of that stuff to come forth. But going back to kind of the beginning of this conversation, it all is going to be based upon how you're showing up, right? How you're leading yourself first, how you're leading your family. And so kind of we're bringing this back. You talked about like eating numbing out to TV or whatever, not moving your body and this like, and then not having like drive and purpose, and then just kind of like spiraling backwards and out of control, not in the direction that you want to be going. And then obviously that affects your relationship with your wife and your kids and all of that. But like, how do you change that then? Like, do you just wake up one day with like, okay, today is the day? Like, do you make a choice and you're committed to that? And you start by moving your body, you start by eating differently, like for you, because I know what I do personally, but like for a man and in more masculine or in the masculine, like what does that look like?
Yeah. Like I watched a video not long ago with this army general, and he says, first thing you do is make your bed.
Is that why you got your hair cut like that today?
Yeah. In my at breakfast, the other general or the other sergeant was talking about it.
But you didn't make your bed today.
No, I have a metaphorical bed because I don't make the bed. I don't make my bed. I've never made a bed, I don't think. As I just never seen the point in it. But again, he says, first thing you do in the morning, make your bed. You make your bed. And that's something you won. You made that decision. You won that decision. You made it. You did it. On to the next. And then on to the next decision. So making
your bed could be whatever. Like
it's whatever it is.
Doing your workout in the morning.
That's exactly what it is for me. It's like, get up. I have my little wake up partner. Lennox gets me up. Then we come downstairs. We chill out for 10, 15 minutes. Like, okay, well, it's time to go work out, buddy. And in that moment, that's the moment that you make that choice, or I make that choice. It's like, I'm getting up and going downstairs to work out. And like, I'm not going to leave it up to a 5-year-old kid, because then just like, don't use him as the excuse. Well, he didn't want to work out today, so I never did. It's like, fuck off. So it's like in that moment though, because there's definitely that moment, and every time I do it, there's always that voice that says like, fuck it, let's just sit here, have a coffee for 45 minutes, then go to work, or like start working kind of thing, right? But it's like, nope, I'm going to go downstairs and go work out. And then that has a whole ripple effect on obviously my day and how I feel and everything that follows. But it's also the ripple effect of like Lennox seeing that. Generally he'll come down right away with me, or if I start like stretching and get working out, then like pitter patter will come down the stairs, and then he'll start working out with me, or like doing his like little push-ups and pull-ups and stretching and stuff, right? So that whole ripple effect of, he's at the age now, he's going to remember all this shit. Like, these are memories. He's going to remember it. And watching and working out with his dad in the morning, like, that's something I really want to instill in him, of like, my dad was a hard motherfucker. My dad woke up in the morning and worked out, and like, I didn't work out with him every day, but I was always down there. I watched him do things. And he said in the morning, like every morning, he's like, hey, I'm going to go work out. And then he went and worked out. So like, my dad was fucking doing things, and he did what he said he was going to do. So that's just one way to start that. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like, now I downgraded it because, I don't know, a few like minor little injuries. So I like downgraded like my burpees to these like modified kind of things that are still like kicking my ass, right? So it's like, I'm still moving, doing that. And then obviously moving heavy weight and doing different things. So it's like, yeah, I had to play with a lot of things. Yeah, I'm like modifying things. Yeah, I'm doing different, but I'm doing it, right? So I made that choice and do it, because not making that choice or not doing it has the same, like, it has the same effect, or has effects. It's just very different, because then that whole day you're like, I wasn't integral with myself. I fucking said I was going to do something. I didn't do it. I'm a piece of shit. I don't know why I didn't do it. And I'll spend that whole day kind of just beat myself up over that first choice that I didn't make. And if I would have just spent the 20 minutes making that right choice, then it'd be so much better.
It's like, essentially you have an energy account that is going to get spent either way, whether you're spending it on beating yourself up for not doing something in the morning, or just doing the thing in the morning and then making more productive choices and commitments throughout the day, right? Because ultimately it's going to be, your change towards anything is going to be small, consistent choices, right? And then following through on those choices. But what I hear you saying is that that very first one, like, commit to that first choice in the morning, and then everything's going to build on that, right?
It really is. It sets up your day. And I know there's so many excuses in the book, especially for most men out there, like working, Like, well, fuck, I got to go to work in the morning. Like, I don't have that luxury. I got to get out the door by 6:30 and like go do whatever I got to like to get to my job. Right. And I work hard all day. Like I'm digging holes. I'm bashing wood together. I'm doing whatever. Right. Like I'm working hard. I don't have the energy in the morning to do that. It's like, well, you got to fucking figure that out. You're going to have to find that energy. You're going to have to do something to make that work.
Does it have to be physical though? Like, I think when we go to think of something hard, we think it has to be something physical, but I mean, mental work, emotional work, or is that not masculine?
I shouldn't say that. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of masculine that do that.
Because don't you have to have like your head right?
Absolutely. But I know most men need that outlet, need that energy. And that's a big problem right now. And that's a big contributor to all these problems that men are having right now. And it's because we're not really doing anything physical enough, right? Like most men aren't out there hunting. Most men aren't even like working that hard, because honestly, like even in trades nowadays, like it's not like you're not slaving for like all like tools have made things better, more efficient. There's everything's more efficient, right? Like there's Hilti made this like backpack thing that you strap to your arms now, and it's like drilling overhead. It'll take all the pressure off your head. So you're drilling, which I mean is a good thing, but at the same time, it's like, you're just not working. No one's working physically that hard. Right. So our bodies are made to exert that energy. Like we just haven't evolved to that yet. Like in 1,000 years, we can't have this conversation because it will evolve more into just a blob probably. But like we're
robots will do it.
Yeah. Like we're still back 1,000, like we still need to move our bodies. Right. And for me anyway, personally, is when I'm doing those workouts in the morning, that's when I can get my mind right as well. So that's when I'm doing like active meditation almost, right?
Yeah. And I guess that's interesting you say that, because I do a lot with breath work, right? So it's like body first, like bottom up approach of moving with your body. So that's exactly what you're just saying. You're moving your body to come into your body, come into the presence, get the energy moving, and brings you into your mind, brings you into the present, present and being mindful. So I guess in that note, like it could be anything then, right? Like an excuse is if you want to live in your excuse, then you're going to have the evidence of that for the, like in your day and in your life. So you could wake up 2 minutes earlier and literally do like 5 push-ups, right? Or like 10 minutes earlier and do 20 push-ups. I don't know, or burpees.
No, it really is. And that's the thing. That's the thing that most men have to get past. And that's what I really wrestled with for a long time. It takes so much to get past that. Like those 5 push-ups are better than no fucking push-ups. And like,
but it's funny how the mind works, right? Because you'd be like, and I think this is all ego, to just be like, I have to go hard or not do anything at all, right? So it's like, I'll start on Monday. Best day to start any workout. But in your head, you can like justify that that's okay, when now 5 weeks have just passed by and you haven't done anything. Whereas if 5 weeks just passed by and you had done 5 push-ups, I mean, I don't know how many push-ups.
That's a lot of push-ups,
but it's going to be a lot of push-ups. So ultimately, I guess your excuses are your anchor, right? Like that's what's holding you back. That's what.
Oh, it's your downfall. 100%.
It's your downfall. Yeah. There's something I want to say, but I can't articulate it right now. So.
Yeah. And most of those, like most excuses, I think it goes back to like our instincts, right? And again, we haven't evolved enough to get here. So most of those, like there's a lot of excuses that are hardwired on us to like keep us safe, right? But that was to keep us safe from like the past. There's really not a lot of threats now. The biggest threat to us now is not moving. It's not doing the things that we should be doing, because we're not fighting. Like the world is, for us anyway, in Western civilization, like it's a very safe world. It's extremely safe. It's almost too safe. And that's the problem with most men now, is like, it's almost too safe where you don't even have to be in shape and you'll be fine. Like you can completely be whatever, right? And you'll never have to worry about, most people, physical altercation. You don't have to work that hard. You can get some sort of a desk job or like work behind your computer all day, and you'll never have to do anything physical. You'll never have to go hunt or drag your own food out of the bush. Like all of that, just there's none of that, right? So you can get through life with never needing that. But Your instincts are still there, and that's what's making most men that are in that trap feel like shit mentally. Like it's just not there. You're not clicking those, you're not hitting those things, and they're in that mental state. They're trying to find those dopamine hits or those hits with other things, right? And that's where they're filling it up with like whatever that is, whether that's like porn or booze or some other forms of outlet to hit those dopamine, or like being addicted to social media, any of that stuff, because that's what's going to fire those receptors.
Well, yeah, because they're just living in a different state of fight or flight.
Yeah.
Back in the day, as you're saying, it would have been like running from an animal or surviving a winter storm or getting food for your family. Whereas now, and back then, you would have either died or you would have moved through that experience and then rebalanced your nervous system, come back to a regulated state within your nervous system, because you're not meant to be in fight or flight forever. So in those experiences that we were designed for, you would move through it and then you would carry on, or you would be taken out and you're done, and end of that story. But today, in the state that you're just saying most men are in, they're living in a chronic state of fight or flight, because like you just said, that's essentially what you were doing when you were depressed, like trying to solve the problems at work in your head, which is clearly not solving the problem, but just keeping you in this state of numbing you out from your family and then causing this whole spiral, but like out of control. Whereas when you can pull yourself back into, I like bringing this back to a full circle here, into your body through your morning routine. I don't really like that word because it sounds kind of like, well, I guess rigid is probably good for the masculine, but sort of sounds cliche, I think, to say morning routine. But getting into your body, then that gets your mind right. And then, as we said, goes into your, like, makes for a better day, but regulates your nervous system. Even if you're only regulating your nervous system for like 5 minutes that day, it's 5 more minutes than not doing it, right? And then you can add more and more and more onto that. But I also think that the more we regulate our nervous systems through the mindfulness, which begins at the beginning of your day by moving your body, the more that you get a feel of what that feels like, and you realize that the chronic stress that you're living under, the depression, the anxiety, the stress, the worry, that's not normal. But when that's all you feel, that is your normal, right? That's your baseline. So when you can actually start tapping back into feeling good again, then you continue to want to make choices that will bring you back to that, right? And then it's almost like you're expanding the feel good portion that makes you want to show up, makes you want to lead, and then like shrinking up that other side, right?
Yeah,
does
absolutely.
that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. And you get addicted to that. Yeah, whether like you get addicted to both, or I do anyway, like whether you're addicted to the shit, the booze, the food, the porn, the sitting around, the social media, whatever that is, that's very addicting. But also the other feelings are very addicting. Feeling good in your body, feeling just at ease, or more at ease. I mean, the things don't go away. Problems don't magically go away. There's always that stress. There's always that pressure. There's all kinds of stuff.
But you have a better capacity to deal with them.
Way better, right? So you get addicted to that feeling of like, whoa, this feels really good. And then obviously like the way you're dealing with the way I was dealing with my kids, the way I'm dealing with my wife, like all of that's a very addicting feeling. And like looking at you the way we look at each other, right? And just to see that look and to feel that instead of like the look of like, what the fuck, right?
I can't wait to get into the other room so I don't have to be in your energy.
Exactly, right? Or your kids not wanting, like all these things. So being that positivity, that feel good, that's very addicting. And that's what I chase now. I'm chasing more of that, right? And it's again, it's very addicting. And there's so many ways to get into that, and I control those ways. So it's on me. I have no excuses. There's no one to blame. There's, can't blame this. My boss is so mean. My wife's doing this. My kids do that. Like, that doesn't matter. I have to be okay with me. And then once I'm okay with that, the rest will follow. Mm-hmm. And they'll see that. They'll see that lead. They'll see the leadership, and again, learning more leadership skills even on top of that, right? And there's so many things that are that play off of that. So it's quite exciting. And again, we can go on for days, but maybe we'll leave this and we can do like part 2 of this, or 3, 4, 5, 10. But it's like there's so much more that I could even say about all of this. But it's the bottom line is like, as a man, I have to feel good in my own skin. I have to feel good in my body, and the ripple effects are like endless on everybody around me, and everyone else feels that. I'm able to help so many more people. I'm able to do things and provide for myself, provide for my family, being able to be a good example for my kids, being able to be a good husband for you, like in all aspects, right? And being able to like protect, to being able to provide, being able to be that emotional support when needed, being able to be that listening ear, whatever that is, right? And just being there and being present and being in that moment and really enjoying it and taking it all in. And again, it boils down to those little decisions, and the world's really your oyster. So, I don't know. Bottom line is just, it's exciting, and it's very gratifying. And it just, it just feels great to have a real mission and purpose, and really being pointed in the right direction, and just following that through.
Yeah, I think maybe another episode we'll have to talk about like the mission piece of that, like what that looks like, how you find that. Is that important? Can you have purpose without, or can you like be masculine without having a purpose? Or how do you find your purpose? Can you still, I don't know. I have kind of a bunch of questions around that, but we should talk about that on another episode. And another thing that I was thinking is, I've been asked before that you're really in tune with my emotions. And I was like, oh, yeah, you are. Like, you personally, Mike, are in tune with my emotions. And so I actually had this thought that we should talk about that for men out there, what that looks like from a male perspective and how you do it.
Yeah, that's really,
a lot of women want that. Yeah,
it's a superpower. It really is. And I see that now in work as well. Whether it's with people I work with, or even just people that I'm helping, and just being able to understand men and women, but especially women, because they're not used to it, especially guys like me, just the way I talk, the way I guess look.
Abrasive.
I seem that way, but I'm extremely sensitive too.
I know. Well, we know that, but I'm saying from the outside.
From the outside looking in, absolutely.
Like your look.
Yeah, well, now that I don't
like
have
I
don't have a shaved head, it's but absolutely, right? So it throws people off, but it's like I say, it's a huge superpower, and you can really and it's not even not manipulative, right? Like really using it for good, and just to get everybody feeling better, right? And as soon as all those people around me as soon as anybody feels better and feels safe, whether it is a man or a woman around me, then like, fuck, watching their creativity, watching their drive, watching their ideas, they just flourish. And it's amazing to see. And it's awesome, again, like I say, to be able to step back and watch all that, and then to watch these people really take off, and watching them succeed and get the recognition they deserve, right? And not being stifled down behind some like wounded guy, or some guy that has to put on all these facades, or wanting all the glory for themselves, or like trying to steal ideas from people, or like being manipulative and being all these things. It's funny because so many people see that, right? And they can see that guy from a mile away, but it still affects everybody, and it's still a negative thing. But being the light in those rooms, it's awesome to be that, and it's pretty special.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say we should leave it on this visual of, it's bedtime, of like a river, because I think we've talked about this in the past. I know I talked about it in my trainings and stuff, but the river bank, the masculine is the river bank, right? It stands firm and strong, and there's no wavering there, right? And then the feminine is the water, the river water that flows with strong currents, and it has force, right? So this is an emotional being, an emotional woman. It can be forceful, it can destroy things, right? It's like a hurricane, but that riverbank stands firm, right? The rocks stands firm. I mean, I guess they do eventually wash away, but
it gets eroded. She's wearing away at me. It takes hundreds of years.
Yeah, it takes a long time, but you know what I'm saying? So that's really strong. And I think that's kind of like a great visual for wrapping up everything we've talked about tonight, because when you are in that masculine state as like a businessman, or an employer, or an employee, even as a father, as a husband, then you hold that space for everything you've just talked about, right? Within your family, within your wife. But you first have to make that choice to do the things that make you that strong man that doesn't waver, right? Doesn't quit. And so I think we've talked about that today in these choices, consistent choices to take care of and to lead yourself. But I just wanted to leave it on that visual because I always just like thinking of the river and the riverbank. Does that make sense? Or do you like it as much as I do?
Yeah, no, that's pretty awesome. Let's do that. We'll leave it at that. And men, be the bank. Women, keep being the river.
Bring in the moolah.
Yeah,
bank.
Be the bank on more things than one. Awesome. Well, I love you.
I love you too.
I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. Check out our offerings on social media at The Revived Couple and online at therevivedcouple.com. Have a request for a show topic? We love that. Send us an email at michael@larockelife.com or DM at The Revived Couple.
And don't forget to rate, subscribe, and review.